Hey, Marek, pleasure having you here with us. How are you doing today?
I'm doing great. Yeah, it's been a really exciting day so far, so really good.
Awesome. Marek, so what I usually do is like, why don't we start with an introduction for you, what you do, and who you really are, uh, the way you would to a 5-year-old.
Sure, yeah. So I'm Marek. Hey, I'm one of the co-founders of the Celo protocol. I'm a computer scientist by training. So I studied first at the University of Toronto for my undergrad, and I went to MIT for my PhD. And it was at MIT that I met both of my co-founders, Celo co-founders. One was doing his MBA at Sloan, and the other was an MIT professor. And before Celo, I started a company with the MBA. It was a machine learning company, and it did well. We got acquired a few years later. After that, actually, a few days after that acquisition, I was at a music festival, and I bumped into Brian Armstrong in 2013. And Brian Armstrong, he sent me a bunch of Bitcoin, and he sent it through Coinbase to my email address. And I remember both obviously being very interested in Bitcoin back then, but I also really appreciated the ease with which he was able to send that to me, and through Coinbase, through the centralized offering that he had. And that got me thinking in the back of my head, and I always started thinking about ways to try to send crypto in a similar way, but in a fully decentralized manner. So you'd be able to send it to someone, to their identifier, either email or phone number, and have them receive it even before creating a wallet, and have that all happen in a fully decentralized way. And so that was ultimately the impetus for Celo. We initially wanted to build that experience on Ethereum in 2017, but we weren't able to build something that was easy enough to use on Ethereum. And so that took us down the path of building Celo, which is a fully EVM-compatible platform that's really been designed to make it really easy for people to send value, stable coins, to people that they care about, to people in their contact list, even before the recipient has a wallet.
And how many users are we talking about today?
It's a great question. I think last week we passed 22 million addresses on the Celo blockchain. Now it's hard to know how many of those are unique individuals. Ultimately it's an open platform, and it's difficult to know precisely, but it's been growing. The network launched 2.5 years ago, almost 3 years ago now. With fully decentralized launch, all the validators running the network, our community members, the company that I helped start has run a validator node, and will not run a validator node. And so the whole thing is 100% decentralized. It's been really wonderful seeing it grow over these past 3 years.
Wow. So just for context for everyone else, I think the last number that I know of that MetaMask has in terms of number of wallets, that's somewhere around 11 million. So the number that you just quoted, I know that you're talking about addresses and not necessarily wallets, but that's still, like, just to contrast it for our listeners and viewers, that's a phenomenal work all in 2.5, 3 years. Kudos to you on that. But Marek,
when MetaMask Celo is fully compatible, so some of those MetaMask wallets are on Celo as well.
Oh, wow. So, Marek, I want to switch gears here a little bit. Talk to me about, okay, so you are, Celo has an ecosystem. There are a bunch of developers. There is a core team that works. There are new people coming on board. What really is your hypothesis? What's going to happen in the world in 5 years, 7 years? What's your mission statement? Why are you working on what you're working on?
Yeah, great question. So Celo's mission is rooted in this idea of prosperity for all. We started with this idea of making it really easy to send value to anybody's phone number with a financial inclusion goal. Since then, we've now launched that wallet. It's called Bellora. People are using it in emerging markets the way that we use Venmo here in the US. But in addition to that, there's been mobile DeFi has really taken off on the Celo platform. Uniswap V3 launched last summer. Curve launched in December of last year. And so there's been a really growing DeFi ecosystem. And then in addition, I think in part because of our mission statement, but also in part because we were the first chain to fully offset the carbon that the chain emits. This was the first governance proposal, so this is a conversation about DAOs ultimately, and one of the things that I'm most proud of is the fact that Celo has full on-chain governance, and the first on-chain governance proposal was literally to offset the carbon that the Celo platform emits. And since then, with block rewards, the platform automatically pays Project Ren to offset the carbon that the network emits. And I think because of that, a lot of refi protocols have come to Celo. And that's been really exciting to watch. Refi stands for regenerative finance.
Yeah.
I think there's a lot of excitement, especially in this down market, for refi. I think getting greenpilled is now like a phrase that people are throwing left and right. And it's just been really, really nice to see this whole refi ecosystem forming on Celo. I can't think of something that fits better with ultimately the mission that we started Celo with.
No, I couldn't agree more, but I want to talk about something specific. You mentioned governance. And because we deal with DAOs a lot, governance is a topic that's very, very, very close to our heart. Mm-hmm. What's your general commentary on the state of governance today? Like, it could be about your own experience. It could be about something that you have read. What do you think is happening? Because a lot of times people refer to, in fact, we are doing a panel on governance tomorrow, which is about how do you have scalable operations and governance. I want to just understand what's your take on the state of governance today? In decentralized communities, of course.
Yeah, it's a great question. I think it's
More much down.
It's been an exciting couple of years for sure. I think seeing so many DAOs spring up over the last 4 years and seeing so many successful cases of, in some cases very contentious governance decisions being worked out and ultimately resolved through DAOs, or in the case of L1s, through on-chain governance, has been heartwarming to see. I think for me, I see a lot of things through the lens of governance of an L1. And so for me, I see a lot of things through the lens of governance for an L1. And back in 2017, there was a big question of whether or not Teslas and their idea of having full on-chain governance for governing Tezos was ultimately going to work, or if it was an experiment that was going to fail. And we were very bullish on it, and that's why we implemented full on-chain governance. And I think time has shown that actually it has worked, and it has been actually a really useful tool for governing certainly L1s, but certainly DeFi protocols, and now for ultimately governing DAOs and these new and exciting types of organizations. And so I'm pretty bullish. I do think we're in the very, very early days still. I do think that, especially in down markets, keeping engagement up, keeping people involved and motivated, I think is an interesting challenge. And I think DAO tooling clearly is helping with this, making it easier for people to understand what a DAO is doing, what are the difficult decisions that are currently being thought about, what are the tasks that need to be done. But I think there's still a lot more work to ultimately make these things more scalable and more engaging.
Do you have any favorite governance model so far? Like, I know there's a lot of experiment, and some of them are very abstract, but one thing which we want to do here, at least at DaoLens, is like, hey, if somebody is listening and they relate to the problem, what is the first step that they take to fix that problem, right? Like, taking it away from just theoretical discussion to practical implementation. Do you have any model? And you could totally talk about how Celo fits into making that happen, or where it could plug in.
Yeah, I think a lot of governance models, at least in the DeFi protocol space, have inherited from Compound's governance protocol. But we actually built ours, I believe, at a similar time to when Compound was building it. So we have a completely unique custom implemented governance protocol. The implemented utility that we deployed on Celo. And so in a way, it's great. If you think about evolution, it's in the branches of where things kind of forked off. It's way, way down there, 2000, and I think 18 when when we started building it. And so I think we made a bunch of unique choices with the seller governance, one of which is we don't have delegation of votes, which I think is interesting, because on one hand you want people to be engaged, you want people to make a decision, but but on the other hand, ultimately not everyone is interested in participating in every governance system, in every vote. And that's something that we're kind of reconsidering, revisiting right now. So that would be one thing that's kind of top of mind. Yeah, what do you think?
Awesome. No, so what we are actually saying is, at DaoLens, at least as far as our experience with DAOs go, governance is something which looks like it will work on paper. When you draft out how the power is going to get shared, hey, we'll have delegates, the delegates will come and do these things. But when it really gets to being implemented practically, there are a lot of human factors that come in. And unfortunately, there's no easy way to test it out on a broader community. But the closest to a model that really works for us, or at least in our experience, has been that you try it out in a very small pod level, like a small subgroup, sub-DAO, guild, whatsoever you have in your own community. And then if it's working out, you start actually spreading it out and letting the entire community test it out. But it needs to be very, 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 in a very frugal fashion or in a very nimble way where you can change things every day. That is unfortunately the only, I would say, bulletproof method that so far we have identified, and we are nowhere close to identifying a model that necessarily works. Because there have been these ideas. In fact, we have actually floated on ideas around, hey, let's say you are a part of Nouns as an ecosystem, or you are a part of Compound as an ecosystem, or you are a Punk holder. You should have these benefits that translate. And in the Web2 world, you have a lot of these concepts like air miles and transferable benefits and so on. But when we are talking delegation, we're essentially just talking within one community. What if you start looking at these boundaries that intermingle with each other and these benefits actually transferring to cross communities, right? So that's where I think we have really not even tapped the 1% of what necessarily is to be tried out on the experiment front. But coming back to you, Marek, I wanna ask two questions before we close this. What are the top problems that you are working towards? What's keeping you awake at night, so that somebody in our audience who maybe has an interesting idea can reach out to you, and then we'll talk about how they can reach out to you.
Yeah, great question. In general, I think, because we are focused on the layer one thing that's very top of mind right now is making it easier to on and off ramp from crypto to fiat in every country in the world.
Yeah.
One of the unique features of Salo that I really like is the paper gas with tokens in spot.
I do.
And so with FTX, there's been a lot of talk about people should really move towards experiences that are fully decentralized, fully DeFi based. But in order to do so, we need to make buying crypto assets or participating in DeFi as easy for people who are savvy as decentralized experiences. And for me, that starts with on and off ramp. And if you can actually pay for gas with tokens, then you can actually offer that experience quite easily if you can on-ramp if the stable coins really give that. And so I'm involved in a company, Valora recently launched Fiat Connect, which is the wallet connect upon and off ramping. It's really designed to make performance it easier for wallets to connect with and off ramp companies, so that the experience still looks and feels needed to the wallet, so the user doesn't actually get confused. But so that it's also very easy for wallets to add new on-off ramps. I think in order to get to a world where you have hundreds of on-off ramps that cover the world, all integrated into a single wallet, the only way realistically those wallets are going to be able to onboard those on-off ramps is if everyone speaks the same language. And so Fiat Connect is a really interesting kind of public good, if you think about it, in the Celsius system. And right now it's a true public good. It's an open source project. There's no the company behind it. There's no DAO behind it. There's no kind of crypto economic component to it. But I think it has the potential to grow into something bigger. It's just no business project. Just like Wallet Hack started as a project, now is becoming a project. It's a project. I suspect that Fiat Connect can also evolve into something really big and exciting way. So, if you're interested in DAOs, if you're interested in open source project with public goods, then I highly recommend checking out Fiat Connect. We can learn more at Fiat Connect.org. So that's something that's interesting. The other thing that we're really focused on today is refi.
Yeah.
They mentioned that our first governance vote happened to defeat the make and sell totally carbon negatives. We say carbon negative because the platform actually had been buying more carbon credits than the emissions that it's been contributing to. And since then, there's been a lot of layer ones that have copied Solo, and we're actually really happy about that because ultimately it's helped shift the industry from a polluter to an industry that actually helped fight climate change. But as I mentioned before, it really made Fellow the go-to place for refi.
Mm-hmm.
And so if you're interested, if you've been greenpilled recently, if you're interested in refi, you're interested in doing something in the space, then I would really encourage you to come and take a look at the Fellow ecosystem. There is a DAO called Climate Collective that launched with funding from the Fellow Community Fund that was managed Fellow Election Governance. And they're this collective of refi protocols. And they're doing some really interesting and I would say science fiction level stuff that I'm just really excited about. I think that gets me really excited about crypto is that we can do these things that look and feel like science fiction. We can bring carbon offset credits on chain. We can tokenize trees and bring those on chain.
Yeah.
We can then back those trees, back stable coins with those tokenized trees. That is just, I don't know, it's just really exciting. And we're seeing it more and more happening in the Celo ecosystem, and it just makes me very, very excited.
Yeah, and it's a rabbit hole. Like if you go in once, you talked about green pilling. I got introduced to the term itself like a few months back, and it's so exciting because there are a lot of people who are already discussing ideas and proposals on making it happen. And I sometimes wonder, like, it just shouldn't get misused to the extent that you are tokenizing something and using that as a collateral somewhere else, because we have seen a lot of models that failed that way, where it was over collateralized. But nonetheless, like, unless you have these ideas happening, you'll probably not really be making progress. Last question, where can people reach out to you?
Yeah, it's a great question. The Twitter is good. My Twitter handle is Marek _. I have a long and Polish last name that is difficult to spell, so I made it helps and just use _ instead of my last name. So definitely, you can find me there. Our main Twitter handle is Celo.org, CELO's.org, and then you can learn more about Celo on Celo.org.
Awesome. And you already know to find me at Vix_rum. That's VIKS_RUM. And everything at DaoLens, @DaoLens. That's it. That's a wrap for us for now.